Hello, welcome back. We're going to pick up with our medical terminology chapter 3 from where we left off. Just remember you can practice all of this information on the Elsevier Evolve website, and I sent this out in Remind a couple weeks ago. So there's lots of exercises and little quizzes you can do. And just remember, if you did not pass all of the chapter 1 and chapter 2 quizzes, I want to see 100% on each of those, because this is just going to be a step above all of that. I want to make sure that you understand the basics before we start getting into more specifics. So pleural, this basically refers to the area around the lungs. So it houses what's called pleural fluid, and it's in between the lungs and the muscles of the rib cage. And it reduces the friction when your lungs expand and contract. So we call that pleural fluid. So that just refers to the pleural space there. Pneumono, this is like pneumonia, it means the condition of the lungs. Pulmon or pulmono, this is like pulmonary, referring to your lungs. Pulmonologist, a specialist of the lungs. All right. Radio, this is x-rays. Like a radiologist deals with body scans and x-rays. Okay. Recto, this is rectum. This is the housing area for your bowel movements before they're excreted from the body. Recto. Renal, this is kidney. Like renal failure is failure of the kidneys. Rhino, this is nose. So we've seen this before. Like rhino, like it has a horn for a nose. Right, that's how I'm able to remember them. Okay. Sarco, this means flesh. So your flesh can be your muscles, your fat cells. It's basically what's under your skin. If you have a flesh wound, that means that you cut into the muscle of your body. Spleno, this is spleen. Your spleen filters your blood. More namely, it filters damaged blood cells, and it can help produce new ones. Similar to the liver and the kidneys, where it filters your blood, but it specializes with the cells that are inside of your blood. Staphyloclusters. So when we talk about bacteria and what we name them, we generally name them based off of what they look like. So we have what's called Staphylococcus. That is a staph infection, right? Like it can cause little bumps, skin irritation. They're pretty common. So literally what that means is clusters of circular cells, Staphylococcus. Because coccus is circular cells, and clusters, think of like a grape, how a grape has all those little grapes all in a cluster, right? Strepto, this is twisted chains. So when you have like strep throat, that's a streptococcus infection. Okay, and it literally just means chains of the bacteria. They grow and they multiply and connect to each other in chains. All right. Then thoracic. Thoraco, this is chest. So your thoracic cavity is like right here. It houses your lungs, your heart, and it also, that part of your body can refer to your thoracic vertebra because it's in that section of your body. Clot, thrombo, like you have thrombocytes, like your platelets, they're cells that help your body to clot. If you have a thrombosis, that means that you have a clot somewhere, okay? Like you can have a DVT or a deep vein thrombosis, and that just means you have a clot somewhere. Tonsils, okay? This is, you have multiple tonsils. They're part of your lymphatic system. So you have some at the back of your throat, under your tongue here. You have some in the back of your nose. And ultimately what they're meant for is to trap bacteria and break them down so that they don't actually infect you. So the problem is when you get chronic tonsillitis, which is an inflammation of the tonsils from an infection, if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're not fully functional, that you can get those removed. Tracheal, this is your windpipe. So if you feel those ridges down the front of your neck, that's actually your trachea. That's your windpipe. It connects your oral cavity to your bronchi. Then we have veno. This means vein. Okay, veins take blood back to the heart, whereas arteries carry blood away from the heart. So we're through with our new root words. So let's focus on some suffixes. These come at the end of the word. Okay, algia, pain. If you have myalgia, that means that you have muscle pain. Cell is a hernia. A hernia is like where you have a protrusion of like fat or organs and they protrude through a muscle. So we get those in our abdomen. Sometimes it's kind of common if people exert too much force on their abdominal muscles, then they can actually push what's behind it, like the intestines and maybe some visceral fat. We can wind up protruding that through the muscle and it damages the muscle. And also if your intestines get crimped and blocked off, pinched off from that, it can cause a lot of problems that you'd have to get surgically repaired immediately. Centesis, so this is a surgical puncture to remove fluid. So you can do an amniocentesis, right? The amnio refers to the amniotic sac. This is what they do during pregnancies if they need to run tests on the fluid in the amniotic sac. Coccus or cocci, so I talked about staphylococcus and streptococcus. Literally it just means a berry-shaped bacterium. It's round. It's like a sphere. Okay, that's just referring to the shape of the bacteria. All right, site means cell. We've seen that before. Dynia is pain. Okay. Ectomy, so this is a removal, like an appendectomy is a removal of the appendix. Anemia, this is a blood condition. So you can have anemia where you have a lack of red blood cells. Genesis, so this is where you produce something. So you can have glycogenesis, which is where your body creates sugar for itself by breaking down fat. We have gram, this is a record, like an electrocardiogram or an electroencephalogram. Okay, that's just a record. Graph, this is an instrument for recording. So an electrocardiogram is created with an electrocardiograph. That's the machine. Okay. Graphy is the process of recording. So if you're in the procedure and you're having it done, you are experiencing an electrocardiography. Okay, that's the process of recording that electrocardiogram. Itis, this means inflammation. We've talked about this quite a bit, but itis can either mean inflammation, well, either. It means inflammation, but it can either be from an infection or it can be from an abnormal body process. So it doesn't always mean that you're sick. Like if you have bronchitis, sure, it could be caused by bacteria or a virus and cause an inflammation of those bronchi, but it can also just be an abnormal body process, like if you have COPD or you have chronic bronchitis, and that's just an abnormal process of your body. It doesn't necessarily have to come from an infection for your bronchi to inflame with chronic bronchitis. Logi is the study of, like biology, is the study of life. Cardiology, study of the heart. Lysis, so this means to break down, like Lysol breaks down bacteria and viruses. Like hemolysis is the breakdown of blood. Then we have pathy. Myopathy is a disease of the muscles in your body. Pinia is deficiency, where something is below. Like if you had this for prefix, it would be hypo, but if you use it as a suffix, it would be pinia. Phobia, this is a fear. Like a hydrophobia would be where you're afraid of water. Okay, plasia, this is a development or formation. Hyperplasia means excessive growth. Plasty is a surgical repair. So I think of this like a plastic surgeon surgically repairs the different body parts. So generally they specialize in like soft tissue, like your face, right? It could be developing, the connective tissue, like if you had to reconstruct an ear or a nose, something like that. Okay, so if we have something that means the fear of heights, okay, we have acromegaly, we have hydrophobia, acrophobia, or agoraphobia. So if you paid attention in the last couple of minutes, you'll know that fear means phobia, so we can automatically rule out question or answer number A, letter A. Hydro means water. That's not necessarily heights. Agoraphobia, that's, let me see if I can remember agora. Let me see. Agoraphobia. Can't remember for the life of me what agora means. So, it's telling me what agoraphobia means, but not agora. So agora means gathering space. Okay, then we have acro, which we've seen this before. Okay, so acro means extremity, the tip or a peak of something. Okay, so we really only learned acro as referring to like hands or feet as extremities. It was said that Abraham Lincoln had acromegaly, which is where he had an enlargement of his hands and his feet. So, but acro can also mean like a tip or a high point. So that would refer to heights. So acrophobia. All right. Ptosis. So this is where we have that, in this case, silent P in front of the word. Ptosis. This is a prolapse where something has like drooped or fallen. Sclerosis is a hardening like atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis, hardening. It makes it unable to move as well. All right, scope. This is an instrument for visually examining, but then you have scopy, which is the process. So these are very similar, kind of like how we had gram, graph, and graphy, right? So the scope is the instrument, and then the scopy is the process of visually examining, like with an endoscope, like you would go in for an endoscopy. Stasis, this is controlling or stopping, right? So homeostasis is controlling the same environment, keeping it the same. Okay. Stomy is opening to form a mouth. So this is a stoma, which is an opening in the trachea. If somebody has some sort of degradation of their throat, or maybe they had an injury where the top of their trachea was collapsed, they may have to make an opening below, which is called a stoma. Okay. Therapy, this is treatment, right? So you've You can have physical therapy, you can have occupational therapy, it's treatment. Tomi is an incision where you're cutting into something. Trophy, this is development. So if you have hypertrophy, this is an excessive development. Okay. We'll get into the shorter suffixes, but make sure that you go through all of these, you review, you know what they mean, all right, because we're going to start putting them together here shortly. So we'll start with the shorter suffixes on the next video.